Why aren't British people working as carers? Why are there not as many British people?
That's Megan. Megan's brilliant. If you're not following Megan, you should be following Megan. I agree with everything she has said in this video, but considering I used to work in care and I worked in care for 9 years, I want to give my perspective of this. Now, I've already said umpteen times why I left the care industry, but given Labour's incredibly stupid stance, I figured it's worth bringing that up again. So, I worked in care for 9 years. I left care work this November. It'll be 4 years since I actually left. Didn't take any time between leaving care work and working in insurance. It was done straight away. I was just done with it and I needed to get out. Now, I started off working in domiciliary care. So domiciliary care, you go to someone's home to look after them. And I think it's an incredibly important job, because if you can avoid someone going into a care home, that is so important to do. Now, the thing of domiciliary care is that you will only ever be paid for the hours or the time that you're actually in the client's home. You will not be paid for travel. If you're a driver, you might be given some sort of allowance to help you with fuel, but you're not paid for your travel time. You're paid from the moment you're in that person's home to the moment you leave. That's it. And a good chunk of the time, they will be booked, they'll be scheduled for 45 minutes, but it will always take an hour. Always. Now, realistically, you will only get 2, maybe 3, if they're willing to wait quite a long time, calls in the morning. Right? So let's say you turn up at someone's house for 7 o'clock. Now, already, in order to be at someone's house for 7 o'clock, you've probably had to be up at 6 o'clock if they're in the local area. Fine. So you don't get done to that person's house till 8 o'clock. That's fine. You then have to travel to the next place. For me, that was a 10-15 minute travel time. So I'd be in the villages for about 8:15, a lot of the time if there was no issues. And then I'd be on to the next call, which could take an hour, which could take an hour and a half, depending on what had happened. But again, only billed for an hour. So we're talking about 9:30 earliest before I'm done. That third call, that means that someone has been waiting for someone to turn up to help them with their morning routine till like 9:30, bare minimum. Where a lot of the older generation, they already want to be up and doing shit by that time. So realistically, you're only going to get 2, possibly 3 calls in the morning. Now, lunchtime is a wonderful thing. You see, lunchtime you'll have 2, maybe 3 calls again, but usually the overwhelming majority of the time, they are like 15-30 minute calls, right? That's it. So you're not really going to be there for longer than 30 minutes. Sometimes if people need a hand going to the bathroom, that's it. Or maybe you're doing them a spot at lunch, something like that, or just popping your head in to say, all right, Bob, need any help with anything? All right, my friend. But again, we're talking 30 minutes maximum. So you've already done 6 hours of your working day, but you have not been paid for 6 hours, because a lot of that is travel time and a lot of that is between breakfast and lunch. So you've only really been paid 3, maybe 4 hours at a push. Then the nighttime run. Now, my nighttime run would normally start about 7 o'clock, and depending on various situations, I would not necessarily be home till 11, 12 at night. And again, up at 5 o'clock the next morning to make sure I'm actually at the places for the people's time. And again, that's 2-3 calls maximum, unless there's some kind of issue. So you are getting paid such a shit wage. You need to work every goddamn day. And if anyone goes sick, everyone else's time off, everyone else's day off is gone completely. I worked, I think it was 3 months solid without a single day off. And I still struggled to pay the bills, despite the fact that I was living in a fucking house share. Then I went into a nursing home. You know the funny thing about nursing homes? That's where you see the most abuse. Now, I'm not talking most abuse towards the people who live there. I'm talking about the most abuse towards the people who work there, because domiciliary care is shit for workers. But if you only want a few hours, it's ideal. But in the care home, in the nursing home, where everyone had some form of dementia, there was about 39 The amount of people we had in that home never dropped below 39. There was a maximum of 4 people on shift at any given time, and one of those people was a TL. So during the breakfasts, lunch and dinner meds, that person, that TL, had to go off into the office and be secluded because they had to sort out all the meds, which could take quite a while because, again, at least 39 people. So you've got 3 people during a day shift to look after a lot of people. A good chunk of them can't move without assistance. A lot of them are incredibly violent. We had a guy there who was actually a former boxer, and he was gone. He was up, he was moving around, but he would urinate all over himself, and we'd have to clean him up. From his perspective, he's just getting random people trying to take his clothes off, so the boxing comes in. Very, very dangerous job to work at. But the company that I worked for in that care home refused to hire any more staff. For context, the people who were actually living there paid bare minimum £240 per week just for their room. Not even for the care, just for their room. There was ample money to hire more staff, but the company refused to. Now, after that, I went into LD. I looked after adults with severe learning disabilities and challenging behaviour. And because of my time in the nursing home, the challenging behaviour was nothing particularly new. It was a whole new level of violence that I wasn't quite expecting in that kind of setting. But it was nothing that shocked me. It was nothing that scared me away. And I genuinely loved that role. I loved that home I was working in. I adored the staff that I was working with, and even the guys who I was looking after, even when they were right bell ends and incredibly violent, and I lost shirts and I'd come home, there'd be pieces of flesh on my shoes. I still loved the job, and I appreciated the people that I was looking after, because we managed to get the violent behaviours down with routines, with getting them out a little bit, with getting them some fresh air, with understanding and changing our approach of how we look after them and understanding where they'd been in their past and everything else. That company wasn't paying our tax. We got the paperwork saying, hey, this is your pay slip and this is paid for your national insurance. But we found out when one of the women in another home owned by the same company had to effectively stop her career because she had to look after her husband. She found out, no, as far as the government was aware, you've not been paying any contributions at all for the last 20 years you've been working with this company. We've had we just thought you were at home not working. So yeah, there's a lot of financial abuse there. And again, this is all on minimum wage, and you're working 12, 14-hour, 16-hour shifts. And originally when I went to that care home, you would have food provided for you. So, the guys would eat. And then when the guys were sitting down, letting their food digest, the staff would then eat. Or sometimes the staff would eat as we were sat next to our guys, depending on, how they were during the day. If they looked like they were going to flip it and lose it, then we wouldn't do it. We'd hold off. But if we could have that, then it just made things so much better. They felt like it was a more family-orientated dynamic. And it was brilliant. But then, of course, the company said, well, we're not going to give you a pay rise, and we're also now not going to allow you to eat at the care homes unless you bring in your own food. So, again, 14, 16-hour shifts. Yeah, we paid even more money for that. Understaffing in care work is rife. The abuse that the staff get from care companies is why I do not blame anyone who does not want to work in care. I did not leave care because I stopped loving the job. I still adore the job. But it's the abuse that staff get from the companies that stopped me working in care. So there you go. That's my perspective as someone who worked in care for 9 years.